got 5:30 on the nose. Let's go ahead and get the meeting started. I'll call the meeting to order. Approval of the agenda, item number 2.1. All in favor say aye. Oppose? 3.1, you got a set of minutes, 3 of them on there. June 18th, June 27th. Anybody need to recuse themselves? All right.
So moved, Mr. Chairman.
I think I need to keep myself as well.
Okay. Got a motion? Do I have a second?
Second.
All in favor say aye.
Aye.
All opposed? All righty. 4.1, local supplement. Mr. Doon, you have an attachment board.
Yes, sir. I'm sure the board is aware that our local supplement for teachers, and when we say teachers, we're speaking of those folks in certified roles. That includes our media specialists, our school nurses, school social workers, speech therapists, instructional specialists, and psychologists, essentially anyone paid from the same salary schedule as a teacher. Our local supplement has not changed in over 10 years. And our local supplement actually was based back when the state was paying for master's degrees. If you notice, we have 2 sections. We have teachers that from 0 to 2 years get a local supplement of $1,600, from 3 to 15 a supplement of $1,625, and then 16 plus years $1,650. And then there's a second section if you happen to have a master's degree. Now we still honor that even though the state no longer pays for folks who have a master's degree past the year 2013. We still honor if you have a master's, we do give you the slight increase because we haven't changed the salary schedule. So the reason I bring this up is I want to skip down to the bottom for just a second. As you're well aware, the last 3 years, we've been very fortunate that including in the state budget has been extra funds for us to add to our local supplement. So in addition to this money that's paid out of local funds, the state has also given us money to give to teachers as a supplement. The first year in 2022, it was enough to give every teacher $1,100. And then 2023, it was $2,097.89. And this past year, it has gone up to $2,647. So you got both of those combined, wherever you fell on our local supplement plus the state supplement. At the time that this legislation was passed, there was some ambiguous language in the legislation that DPI has since clarified that said that if you do not raise your original local supplement to a certain level, you are not entitled to keep receiving the state supplement. Because the fear was you would stop paying your local supplement altogether and just use the state money and put the local supplement back in your budget, even though it had been earmarked for staff. So to that end, the percentage that we need to increase our local supplement to continue receiving these state funds in the future would be an increase of $250. So what you have at the top is what the new supplement amount would be. That increase would cost Beaufort County Schools $160,000. That $160,000 would cover a $250 raise plus benefits. So teachers make from 0 to 2 years would go from $1,600 to $1,850. Teachers from 3 to 15 from $1,625 to $1,875. And you can see each level what the next level would be. This, with the help of our outside consultant and the finance team worked on this along with me, we believe that this would keep us, we think, in good graces with the state for at least this coming year and possibly another 2 after it. Now, depending on how large the number at the bottom keeps going, I might eventually have to come back to you and say, okay, the $250 didn't cover it anymore, we're gonna have to do something else. Or if the board said, well, we just can't continue to raise this, then we would look at the state and say, we're not gonna be able to accept the extra supplement because our local supplement just can't keep up. So I bring this to you tonight for first reading to answer any questions you have. I do have for you also for your information, our local school systems, Martin County Schools offers a $1,400 flat annual supplement. They don't have the range broke down the way we do. Pamlico County is a 12%, so it's not a fixed dollar amount. It's a percent based on wherever you fall. So the longer you're in teaching, the higher your local supplement is because you have 12% on higher salary versus a lower salary. Pitt County, theirs is a little different. Teachers with a 2-year contract get a 7.5% supplement. Teachers on a 4-year contract, it varies by grade span. So if I'm K-8 and I have a 4-year contract, I get an 8.5% supplement. If I'm middle school, I get a 9.5% supplement. And if I'm 9-12, I get a 10.5% supplement, assuming I get a 4-year contract. So we are competing. Those are the 3 districts that we compete the most with in terms of teacher recruitment and retention. But in order to hopefully continue keeping the larger state supplemental funds, we would need to increase our local amount.
Anybody got any questions for Mr. Doon?
So,
Yep.
with those figures on the other counties, where do we fall?
Ahead of Martin, behind Pamlico, and behind Pitt. Because of the percentages, because ours is flat, doesn't go up
It's
based on.
not really apples to apples, is it?
No, not at all. So,
Mr.
Okay, my question. Well, this does not cover teacher assistants, does it?
No, Beaufort County Schools does not offer any kind of supplement for classified employees.
Okay, here's my concern with that. This past year especially, as most board members realize, so many of people that were classified as teacher assistants were acting teachers because we did not have a teacher for that class. So they didn't get certified teacher pay because they weren't a certified teacher. And I hate to think that they are being left out of this whole thing. Now, I realize they don't have a teaching degree or any of these other degrees that support the list of people you've got at the top of this page. But, and I know I'm talking about more money. I'm trying not to spend more money, but I'm also not trying to sell short the very people we desperately needed this past school year. We would have had classrooms with no one had it not been for the teacher assistants that stepped up. And most of the teacher assistants that I know, whether it's at an elementary school or at a high school, they're not in there doing bulletin boards. They're not in there putting coats on, taking coats off. They're teaching. They're working with our children that maybe are behind a grade level or 2 in reading or math or something. So they're doing the job of a teacher. So my question is, I know they're not included, but is there nothing we can do for them? Is there nothing we can afford to do for them?
I mean, if the board wanted to institute a classified supplement of some type, they certainly could do so. The funding would be either local funding or fund balance to pay for it.
How many teacher assistants do we have total? Just an estimate. I'm not going.
Right at 100.
Right at 100.
And that's
I'm just one board
exceptional
member,
children.
but I feel like we are
everybody.
leaving out a part of our county school system that is vitally important from kindergarten to 12th grade. I see so many teacher assistants that are actually in the classroom doing the same job as a teacher. They're not getting paid for it because they don't have the license. I get that. But to not give them anything is almost insulting, and that's my piece.
Is there some way that, because I agree with Carolyn a lot on this, is there some way that we could come back with some kind of matrix like we have here
Sure,
for TAs as well?
certainly.
I like that idea. So if
You know, I mean, if you got 0 to 2 years, it's this, 3 to 15, this.
Sure.
Now, I mean, I don't know, like, you know, we do the non-master master. I don't know that's relevant for a TA, maybe
If they had a
it is.
master's, they would be a
Well,
certified
right,
teacher.
but I mean, if they have a degree, right, and not a degree, they may have that, right? So, just a thought.
Anybody else got any questions, comments, direction? Don't forget your mics. I know you're loud, but don't forget your mic next time.
Did anybody have any problems?
No. I'm making a good.
Did you hear me, Matt? Yes, sir.
Mark, which fund were you saying you were pulling the 160 from?
We could either pull it from the extra 80,000 that the county commissioners gave us, or it would have to come from.
From local?
Yes, sir. It would always be local.
Okay. I mean, I agree with what you're saying, and it doesn't matter, I mean, well, it does matter, but to say that they might not have the degree or whatever, it didn't seem to bother us when we asked them to go in that classroom and teach.
Right.
So,
And I know this
we're
is
asking
what
them.
you're for.
Yeah, just, Yeah, I'd be interested in seeing the same thing that Terry and Carolyn's asking for, and come up with your magic on where you want to pull the money from to pay for it when you bring it back to us.
Yes, sir.
Well, you're always good at that.
Mark, are most of these teachers' assistants, are they degreed to, say with a basic degree?
But the vast majority of our teacher assistants at least have an associate's degree.
Associate's
A
degree.
2-year degree.
Yes, sir.
And they're potentially pursuing at least a
Not near as many
bachelor's.
as we would like. We have a small handful that are pursuing education degrees.
I think from what I'm hearing, a lot of school systems, have had to address the fact of, we would love to say that we have certified teachers in every position, but I think the realization is, and I think a lot of school systems are realizing this, is that they are forced to staff with people that don't have
Yes, sir.
certification. They may have degrees and in some form or fashion, but they don't have certification. Like I say, we'd love to have that, but I think a lot of school systems are having to face up to the fact that that's not always what we can do.
I agree.
And I don't think it's the best morale booster for a TA to be working as hard as they can, to be left out when maybe the rest of the building where he or she happened to be, they all get a little supplement, got a little more, and yet here's this TA teaching in a classroom because we don't have a certified teacher to put in there. I just want to be mindful and respectful of who we're leaving out. I think they're all certainly smart enough to understand that money is tight and money is always going to be a concern. But I would love for Mark to look at what we could do to recognize what they're doing for us.
Is there an entry-level amount you'd like to start at that we can build a matrix off of?
Because see, that's kind of the issue. We're starting at ground zero.
Yeah.
What, do you
Well,
know
first-
what other districts say?
I don't.
I'll have to research
Gotcha.
classified
Okay.
supplements.
We'll start there and then, we'll start,
Um,
we'll back our way into it, I guess.
Another point on the matrix, I mean, here, we do 0 to 2, 3 to 15, 16 plus, and then we go into the masters and do the same scenario. Why don't we look at another matrix of dividing up the years, like 0 to 3, 4 to 7, something of that nature, because honestly, in my mind, a TA that's been around for 10 plus years deserves a lot more than somebody that's just coming off the street 0 to 3, right?
Tenure means something.
Absolutely.
And this thing goes from 3 to 15, Terry. That's what you're saying.
Right,
Yeah.
don't go, I mean,
That's
well, 3
right.
to 15, that's a
That's
huge
too big.
chunk of years.
Yeah.
Let's divide that into
I agree.
different categories, is my suggestion.
Mark, just the last thing for me, and I know you've told me before, when is this money paid? I know when you say 24, are you saying 24, 25 year, or when is
This-
it paid out? When are these two monies paid out?
So your teacher supplement is paid in 2 installments, of once in December, once in
June,
June.
December, right.
The state supplement that we've just been receiving since 2022 is paid in June.
Okay, so when you say 2024, that's the
I mean,
amount they
that
just
was what
got?
was just paid in June.
Right, they just paid that money.
Yes,
in
sir.
June. Okay, thanks.
Anybody
And
else
Mark, what I'd like to, what I would hope that this matrix or this program that you're thinking about could be structured such that it is an incentive for those TAs to pursue, a level of degree.
I agree with that. I'd like to see this as an incentive to help these people get their certification.
And I agree with Carolyn and what you're saying too, that, having a certification or having a master's degree, different things, when you compare that to someone who's been doing the job for 10 years, there has to be some point in time where possibly that equalizes. A TA who's been there 10 years has a lot of experience.
Well, and just the loyalty alone of sticking with us, we know that pay is not superb, but it's not superb for somebody with a master's either, not what it should be, but we've got a lot of TAs that have been with us a lot of years, and I know a lot of schools, like I said, even at the high school level, where they count heavily on those TAs running that classroom, whether it's an online, streaming class or whatever, and I know in years past, they have felt very left out and insulted that we didn't give them anything. And, we can do better.
Yeah, we can.
All right, everybody good?
Agreed.
Thank you.
All right, let's move on to 4.2, policy 4300. Everybody here, we have an attachment. Dr. Cheeseman.
Yeah, this is an extension to the board asking Tharrington Smith attorney Steve Ralston to look at policy 4300 in respect to some of the behavior outcomes. In your attachment, you should see that Mr. Ralston, at your request, under section D as in David 1, is adding line item 0, or letter O, excuse me, as restitution as part of your disciplinary consequence. In addition, he's also added a new section, D as in David .3, which would be an explanation for parents and community to read that violations occurring near the end of a school year, when a student engages in behavior that would ordinarily justify a short or long-term suspension, but the behavior occurs too near to the end of the current school year to enforce a suspension of appropriate length in light of the behavior, the superintendent has authority and discretion to impose additional non-suspension consequences as a substitute for suspension. These consequences may include, but are not limited to, those listed in section D.1, and specifically may include prohibition from participating in year-end activities such as graduation ceremonies as monetary restitution if the behavior involves damage to school property. So essentially, it's a paragraph justifying the previous section. Based on your desire to have this put in, not only do I recommend that you assume these changes, I recommend that you waive first reading to approve.
I have.
Hang on, Don's
Okay,
got
go
first.
ahead.
Yeah, what I would like to say is I don't disagree with any of this, but in the event that it's criminal, I would like to see something in there that law enforcement would be notified.
Where would you like to put that?
Anywhere that it can be put in there, right under that, or a 4302, somewhere under
Serious violence.
student conduct.
Serious
Se-
violation.
Serious, criminal.
Violations,
Yeah.
which is D2. Would you consider
Yeah,
that?
yeah, like, like breaking into the building and causing damage, that needs to be notified to our law enforcement that has happened. And why it wasn't in this past instant, I have no idea, but it should be in there.
I just, trespassing, whether it's considered breaking or entering, damaging property, they are all Class A misdemeanors. And I understand the position that the principals and superintendent took when they were deciding on the level of punishment for this. But I wonder why, if it is a misdemeanor, and by definition, why is it why do we force that decision on the principal and the superintendent to make that decision? Why don't we automatically, like say with what Don said, go ahead and put it in the policy that it's referred to law enforcement and let law enforcement get involved in it? If it ends up going to a judge, because it is a misdemeanor effect, if it goes to a judge and the judge wants to dismiss it, or if the judge wants to make a point about it, why not let the judge do that instead of forcing those decisions locally on us with the superintendent or the principal? Why shouldn't it be, if it's a criminal offense, if it's a misdemeanor type charge like what we saw, why not go ahead and let the court system take over at this point in time and take that burden off of us?
Good idea.
Then I would ask that you look at paragraph 2 under serious violations, and 5 lines down after it says certain violations involving firearms or explosive devices may result in a 365-day suspension, and insert the following statement that would say serious violations will be referred to law enforcement, period.
I'm good with that.
Well, I mean, serious violations may not be that serious. I mean,
Well, he kind of.
What about
I don't wanna
something like?
take the principal out of this
I mean,
loop, guys,
I'm talking about
because-
something more
Hang on.
criminal in nature.
Hang on one second.
Something more criminal in nature.
Yeah, all right. Go, Terry. Terry.
Well, I mean, we gotta allow our principals to have a say in this. Okay, it's their building, right? They know the kids, not us, honestly, right? I mean, so certainly we can put it in a policy, but it's gotta be up to them if they wanna engage the authority. That's my take on it.
And can I add, which kind of piggyback, we are now going to have law enforcement in the building in the form of an SRO. And I think a principal and the SRO, who will be very well aware of what's going on, can also have some dialogue.
I'm okay with that. That's-
Might need to consider that, and then it can go to Matthew, the principal, the SRO, to say, yes, this needs to go beyond this. This is not what we consider, because he lists a lot of things that are a serious violation. I agree with all those as calling them serious, but I also agree with Terry in that
And
you
we
gotta, you gotta let the principal have some leeway, or we're taking the building away from them.
That's right, exactly. That's what I'm afraid of.
Don?
I'm in agreement with Carolyn on that. I think as long as the principal and the SRO is on top of the situation, they know what it is, they can make the right decision. And certainly the SRO can, whether the sheriff's office or the local police needs to be notified. If it's serious enough, like a criminal activity.
And they would
Yeah.
work with Matthew, the principal, Matthew, and SRO, and we let them do that, and if they want to pursue it, and it needs to be a board involvement, Matthew can.
Now, I
call.
think we've confused Matthew.
No, yeah.
No, he doesn't look like he's confused.
Confused.
No.
He's
You
got
know,
it all, he's writing notes.
And my
No.
point in
The
this
difference
is,
is, his statement is different than your statement.
Right.
And then
That's-
difference in your statement.
Which, if I may respectfully.
sure,
What I just learned or interpreted from you, Mr. Shreve, is that what the principal and I did previously is now okay with you, even though the decision based off of what our actions were, you were not in agreement. Whereas your policy suggestion says, hey, take it off everybody's shoulders, let law enforcement decide.
It's a-
Your decision of, hey, let the principal decide is what we did.
Correct.
Okay.
I understand.
Whereas initially being critiqued for that decision, now you're saying is okay. So what I'm hearing is that the two sides don't agree.
Let me clarify my point.
All right, go ahead.
My point is, I was just assuming that the SRO would be law enforcement.
Well, even under Allied, they had law enforcement capability of making decisions,
They did.
and they
Yeah.
chose not to in that case.
Right, and that may, if the SROs were the sheriff's department, when that happened at Washington High School, the same decision might have very well been made.
Yeah.
So, I'm not trying to go back and question that. I think it looked a lot worse than what it actually was. So, we have to move on from that in this policy. We have to decide how we want it tweaked so that it's fair. I am not trying to hang a criminal charge on a 17-year-old that's made a dumb decision. However, I want to make them accountable or they're not going to learn from it. So and that gray area in between, I would rather the principal inside the building and the SRO and Dr. Cheeseman or Mark be the ones, because I'm going to pull him in here in case Matthew wasn't available, that a quick decision can be made to deal with it. You know, this happened at night, but had something happened in the middle of the day, you know, we've
So-
got to be able to also trust the people that are in charge to do the right thing.
Well, this was,
hang
by
on.
definition in the description here, these were, I think it mentions in one of the sections that it was criminal act.
So why don't,
Now, why would we want to put Dr. Cheeseman and the principal in the middle of that, making a decision on, well, yeah, it was a criminal act, or or, you know, it's a criminal act, but we're gonna overlook it anyway.
I hear what
Well-
you're saying, but why wouldn't you want them involved in that decision?
I mean, because the principal can
They-
just put his hands up and goes, hey, let's get law enforcement involved.
Why don't-
right?
why don't we come
I
to
mean,
the- well,
Rick
here's-
Anderson could have done
Let-
that
let-
in his
all
case.
right,
You know,
hang
we
on, hang on,
have-
hang on. Hang
This
on, hang-
board has, there have been more questions, I'm sure, that have come to all of us consistently. Why wasn't law enforcement brought into this process?
So-
And I understand the policy.
Let me
And
go.
I understand the
Go ahead.
decision that was made. But I understand that this imposes, you know, it drops everything on the, supposedly the principal's shoulders to make that decision. And I think that's unfair to begin with.
Well, why don't we just grab that same last sentence where it says explosives devices and put, principal shall consult with the SRO when there's a criminal act involved. That's all you gotta say. And then he's consulting with the law enforcement body that is inside the building. He is a Beaufort County Sheriff's Office employee. He consults with that sheriff's office.
And makes a
employee,
determination.
And then that sheriff's office says, hey, this is a criminal act. I'm gonna take it from here. You're done. That's up to them too.
Because we don't charge people.
TW.
Sir,
This is being called a traditional prank night. So my concern is this gonna happen next year? And if it does, what,
Has nothing
is
to do
there
with
teeth,
discussion.
is there teeth in our policy to deal with this?
with the policy changes, in my opinion, yes. And if you want to put the principal consults with the SRO in the back of it for charges, that's it. Then you're done. He is the law-abiding person in the room. Can I ask the principal something? Which one? I need a high school.
You got two right in the second row.
There we go. I'll let him get back.
Rick was involved.
All right,
Rick's hiding.
all right.
He's in for the door.
I know.
The back door.
No, Dr. Swenson. Yeah.
Oh, there's a
Doc-
third.
yeah. Dr. Swenson, I'm gonna put you on the hot seat first night in the room, okay? All right.
Welcome, by the way.
Scenario is you have an act in your building and you consult with your, and it's a criminal act or could be considered a criminal act, i.e. trespassing, that other stuff is done. So a criminal act that you may think of in my opinion, do you think that you and your Beaufort County SRO could have the discussion whether law enforcement needs to get involved from that point on, or from, and do criminal charges, or how would you like that?
Well, that's normally how it's done.
Okay,
You can sit right down with them, you know, Washington and Each County did the same thing, I sat with them, talked through it, make sure we had a rational, direction to go in, and that we knew what student we were working with.
okay, all right, cool, thank you, Dr. Swan.
But that
My
goes back.
my last
Go ahead.
comment is that, you know, if it's a criminal act, it sounds to me like that the decision is already made. If it's defined as a criminal act, the decision is already made as to where it should go.
And
If it's not a criminal act, that, you know, opens the door, but if it's a criminal act,
I think what Dr. Swenson touched on, that we have to also remember, let's say in the middle of a school day, a special needs student goes through breaking all the glass and everything. It's a fine line that you walk in charging, even though that's a criminal act. if
Right.
One of my children did it. But if it's a special needs child, you don't get to immediately charge them. Am I right or wrong?
no, I agree with that.
You have to allow the principal, with whoever he decides to bring in for additional information, I feel you have to allow the principal to make that call. Everything is not black and white. It never is. If it was, we'd all be principals. It takes special people to be a high school principal, and I trust the ones that we have. So, and back to what was said earlier about why was this done and why was it not handled, and it was a hard question. I was asked many times. It wasn't hard for me at all. I gave the same answer day one that I gave day 10. because the principal decided that was the direction to take, and they made the call. And he's sitting in here tonight, and you will not have a more qualified person to make that decision than what we had there. And I'm comfortable with that.
All right. So we just need,
So-
okay, you good. You
Just
know
to
what
wordsmith your statement, Chair.
Yep.
Principal shall consult with SRO regarding potential criminal act. And the reason I say potential is as public school employees, we do not determine if it's criminal or not.
That is correct.
If it is-
That's what I
if
said.
it
We don't
is-
charge people.
If it is beyond your code of conduct, and you can't address it, cannot address it within the code of conduct, then you turn it to law enforcement. That's why I'm using the word potential. However, I'll give you a really good example. If you are underage and you possess a vape, have you committed a crime? And if you have, would you like me to call the police?
No.
And so therefore, that's why I'm asking you to use the word potential, meaning the principal shall consult
Right.
with the SRO regarding potential criminal act. And then that
Absolutely.
way, the dialogue is there, and then you can move forward. And if the principal feels as though the superintendent or assistant superintendent needs to get involved, then he or she would pick up the phone and call.
Exactly. We hire these
good with that?
people for a
Right,
reason.
yeah, I'm good with that. My comments were with regard to why are we imposing such strict, I don't know, not guidelines, but why is the burden of that decision placed with just the principal? And if you think it can be solved by having the consultation, I'm trying to protect the principal.
I appreciate
I'm trying to
that.
protect, you know, I'm trying to protect them from the burden of a decision that is made or not made.
Yeah, so to respond to that, our principals, they're some of the smartest people I've ever met.
Absolutely.
The other part of that too is our principals have such a relationship and rapport with our district team that a majority of the time, they pick up the phone and call one of us, even on the most simple thing, just to make sure they've dotted all the i's and crossed all the t's. And so rarely would a principal or assistant principal make a decision in isolation, as they have access to us.
Okay. Well, like I say, the burden that I was speaking of, whether it applied to a principal or a superintendent or staff, you know, I just want to make sure that we're, you know, the burden is properly placed.
Okay.
And
I understand.
I get that. I understand what you're saying. I don't disagree with that. But my other philosophy on that is that there needs to be respect in the building. And I would want the students, whether it's middle school, high school, whatever, to know that their principal has authority that can immediately impose a discipline until, and if it has to go further because of law enforcement or bringing in anybody on the district team, but I don't want any student to think, well, he or she doesn't have the final say, so they got to call somebody. We got to give them some authority because it is on their campus.
The Beaufort County Schools Code of Student Conduct gives the administrator the authority. The principal does not have to call us to make a decision.
Right.
Typically, our leadership teams call us to make sure they've not missed anything. And so I have confidence in their training and their development that they would be able to do so.
I do too.
So if we would like to have a, with those corrections, waive first reading, and if y'all would like to move that, that's fine.
Let's move it to an action.
All right, I got a motion to move it to action second?
Second.
All in favor say aye.
Aye.
All opposed? All in favor to approve the policy changes to 4,300?
So move.
Second.
All right, all in favor say aye.
Aye.
All opposed?
No, only because this is a first reading and I haven't quite finished thinking it through.
Okay, all right. Policy 4.3,
Mr. Chair, before you leave that
all right,
situation, Washington High School,
all right.
rumor has it, or had it, that the security system was not working function. Is it working like it should be now?
The security system was working functionally and was not set.
It was not set.
Is there a reason why it was not set?
human failure.
Okay, have we retrieved all the keys that's floating around?
I don't know how many keys are floating around, but I have put in a process in order to rekey the exterior of the building for a
Right.
cost that's internal.
My question is, follows right along with that. How many years has it been since we've rekeyed?
Long before I got here. To rekey that entire building is over a $10,000 job for over 200 doors.
Do we have a stated key control
Exterior-
program?
Exterior doors.
All doors. I don't know that answer. I could find out for you. What was your question, sir?
Do we have a stated or written key control program?
We do in terms of what our director of maintenance works with in terms of key requests, but at the site level, they should also have documentation of the keys that are distributed.
I'd like access to some of that, just to see what it looks like.
Sure, absolutely. Just let me know when you're available.
Anytime,
Yeah.
your discretion.
But the security system does work properly.
After speaking with the director of maintenance, he confirmed that it works. The issue is it's a multi-zone security system. So at times, people don't set it thinking other people are either in the building or accessing the building. But that has been brought to people's attention that it does work.
All right.
4.3, policy 3450, class rankings. We got an attachment, a bunch of highlights and strikes. Dr. Cheeseman.
So I actually asked Ms. Apple to update this to you late this afternoon as working on this policy at your request. We had a principal meeting today to walk through some of this as well. So that's why you may be reading this for the first time. I would not suggest waiving this today. I would take some time to talk with some constituents about it. But under Policy Code 3450, I'm seeking to remove recommendation letters, as really in your policy, you're working in that second paragraph around using your student data management system for class ranks, so you would not use a student recommendation letter. That may have been applicable 12 years ago, but it's not really common now.
And what is it being changed to? I've already forgotten what it's called. It's not Power School.
It's Infinite Campus.
Infinite Campus?
Yes, ma'am.
Okay.
So in the second paragraph, you'll notice what we've changed here is that in previous, it would state valedictorian and salutatorian, but we're also asking for class marshals and graduation honors to be determined by the student data management system. The reason being is that in the former policy that was adopted in 2015-16, if you remember, what caused some of the issue was a weighting grid at the bottom. So now that weighting grid seemed to be a little bit different than your student management system. So in short, we're simply asking that all of these follow the data management system, meaning that your valedictorian, salutatorian, class marshal, and graduation honors follow Power School right now and/or Infinite Campus or whatever else it might be in the future. Also, just a correction in vocabulary, students who graduate early will not be eligible for valedictorian, just to switch it up to be valedictorian and salutatorian. And at the very bottom, you'll notice number 7 was the original language that's now has lines struck through it. So that's what the old policy used to look like. And if you move to the next page, number 8 is now crossed out, and you'll see where 2015-16 stood at one time. So after meeting with principals today, number 7 is the suggestion coming back to you. That effective with the 24-25 academic year, the district will use the following matrix based on a weighted GPA, which is where the confusion was 10 years ago or however many years ago about an unweighted GPA. But you would use the following matrix based on a weighted GPA to break a tie for valedictorian, salutatorian, class marshals, and graduation honors. The high school principal and counselor or counselors at the school will calculate all tiebreakers and submit the results to the superintendent's office to verify and confirm the outcome. Doesn't necessarily mean it comes to me, it would come to one of my designees. Typically our Power School operator, in this case it's Gail Rao. But to that point, the tiebreaker would follow the matrix below. And so it is very rare that you would actually have a tie at some of our traditional tie schools. More likely, you'd have a tie at Early College High School based on the total number of college classes. And Power School in its current form actually goes out 4 decimal places. So when you're looking at the tiebreaker, it's extremely difficult to get out to a fifth or sixth decimal place. And that's why they would look at someone to sit and actually hand calculate on the matrix below. And so you're looking for the tiebreaker based on the class ranking. And so where the confusion lied this year is that your policy adopted in 2015-16 utilized this matrix essentially to help a plus or minus system when the state went away from plus or minuses. Now, we're actually asking to use that matrix, still with the weighted formulas, going back in terms of what the classes would look like for someone to actually break a tie at their school. So anticipation of that, that's what I'm suggesting. If you notice underneath, and this is good for families and the community to know, this paragraph remains intact. There's no change to it, but essentially it says that the principals will ensure official class ranking is commuted in a fair and consistent manner. Also, it follows state board policy. But also notice, the superintendent and principal shall ensure that students and parents receive adequate notice to how class rank is calculated, meaning that as they enter into their freshman year, basically in the 8th grade rising meetings, or rising 8th grader meetings would actually be announced, plus written documentation. But please notice as you go down through that paragraph, which remains the same, nothing in this policy provides a student with any legal entitlement to a particular class rank or title. Although the student grievance procedure provided in policy 7040-4010, student and parent grievance procedures may be utilized to resolve the dispute. The board encourages parents, students, and principals to reach a resolution. Essentially what that says from your attorney is the title is not legally binding to someone who thinks they're entitled to it. All right, so that does not change. So with this, I ask that you speak with your constituents, talk with principals, talk with teachers, talk with families, and then we can bring it back again.
Anybody got any questions?
Is this matrix, what's in the box, was that renormed, or is that what we've had?
That's what you've had. We've not touched it. We're just now making sure that it's applied for tiebreakers only. So community understands the difference between the top paragraph on the first page, that you're using data management.
Right.
But also it was not renormed, other than the sense to say that, hey, this is all weighted. We're looking at data management all weighted.
Was there any discussion, does it need to be renormed, or is
In my-
everybody good with the way it is?
In my professional opinion, all people at the table thought it was good the way it is.
Works for me.
Anybody got any other questions?
Yeah, just, you might find it irritating.
Okay, fine.
This is jumping way back to the beginning, where it says, students who graduate early will not be eligible for valedictorian or salutatorian. I don't know why that keeps resonating in my mind, but should we have a category that says super valedictorian or something?
No, sir.
What's the thinking on that?
That they graduate early?
I mean, shouldn't they be rewarded for excelling, graduating early?
Yes, the graduation is the reward. Not trying to be funny with
Oh,
you, but
I know,
in all
I
seriousness.
know, and that's all it would mean to me, but it's almost like they got cheated for doing good.
Well,
No.
can I speak real quick? Because I got
Yeah,
a
you're the
personal
chair.
experience. I got a personal experience on this one. I know of a kid that's very kin to me that graduated early and the end of the semester. He was ranked 50th in his class. So he should not be,
Understand that,
Yeah.
but if you had the other situation, I would think maybe that should be recognized.
and he could have kept going, but he was ready to get into college. and keep
Understand.
rolling.
But,
So the
but-
question
but
would be,
isn't-
that I have is, in a really bad analogy, if the student finishes in turn 3 of the race, but the car that can catch him passes him in turn 4, how does he win the race in turn 3? And so therefore, you would be declaring a super valedictorian against a field that was still coming from behind who may needed one more class. And so I'm not sure it's an apples to apples comparison in that regard.
And most of the time, if they're choosing to graduate early, they have the credits, and correct me if
Yes,
I'm wrong,
they
they have
have
the
to have
credits to
credits.
graduate. But the student that has stayed till the very end of their senior year generally has accumulated more credits.
Yes.
So it would be almost, maybe not totally, but almost impossible for somebody who's got one less semester of credits to be far and above somebody that has an extra semester of credits. And I'm not saying it's impossible, but it would
Yeah.
almost be.
It would be tough, but I just.
They've chosen to
I'm thinking in
graduate
terms
early
of
to
the
get out.
exception. The exception will come along eventually.
guess we deal with it when it does, but I,
Yep. All right.
But I
Just,
was always told if you graduate early, you forego any other,
that's it.
That is correct.
once you're gone, you're gone.
We have a lot of students that graduate early and go into the military.
I won't never fortunate leave early. I had to stay around.
Well,
for
you
years.
can't come back and play a spring sport because you chose to graduate. So the same argument could be made, why can't they come back and play baseball or softball? Because you chose to graduate early. You're no longer on this campus.
That's right.
All right.
just make a quick statement. I'm not gonna get into all that, the argument that's been going on here. I just wanna, restate what I said at the last meeting. And I know it's not gonna happen in this district, I understand, but I think a discussion ought to be had to do away with valedictorian and salutatorian altogether. It's an outdated system. If you read college admissions, they give no credit whatsoever to be a valedictorian or salutatorian. There's other things much more important that they look at. They get plenty of smart people apply for colleges. Being smart is not what gets you in college anymore. So I think it should be done away with completely.
All right, let's move on down to 4.4, Board Policy 3620, extracurricular activities and student organizations. You have an attachment. Dr. Johnson.
Yeah, so I would not ask to waive this as well, but just to bring your attention to things, because there's a lot of line items that have been struck out on this. Your school board association sometimes strikes things out and just moves things around, so I just want to bring your attention to it. So on policy 3620 on page 1 of 6, letter B as in Bob, additional rules for specific activities. Number 1, letter B, participation by 6th graders. There's a choice that you get to make there, and it has been the choice of this board to allow 6th graders to participate. So I just wanted you to see that where it's actually written, it's still giving you a choice, but I would highlight for you to allow 6th graders to be eligible to participate in all interscholastic athletics except tackle football. If you move to page 2 of 6, and this will benefit you because you most recently have been hearing some appeals and looking at potential internal transfers, that your school board association, under letter C, students who transfer schools within the school system, has now created the language that it is the policy of the board that a student who transfers from one school in the school system to another school in the school system will be immediately eligible to participate in interscholastic athletics at the new school if otherwise permitted under the rules of the State Board of Ed. Now, through that, what that means is if a student from Northside went to Washington, both principals approved the incoming principal approved the transfer, then the student would be eligible. And
So that does away with the 365 rule?
Yeah,
And you don't think that encourages transfers?
it does. But it actually.
Why would we want that?
It gives your student population in the district the same right that a student coming from a different district entering into the district has.
But there's a 365 rule already for people coming from out of the county into this county. There's a rule that covers that. And through the North Carolina High School Athletic Association.
Part of that is, in that policy, I believe you can designate them to allow to play if in fact they appeal. So-
That is correct. There is an appeal process, but it still states that they have to go through the appeal process unless there's some, well, we know what some of the reasons are that they use
Right.
to get in here.
And trying to
Okay.
get in here.
And try to get in here.
All right, so put your eyes on that.
Everybody can't take boat building.
All right, so, true. Put your eyes on that, and then put your eyes just below it, because these are things that you need to speak with constituents about, especially the next one. The School Board Association is recommending that you strike this out, but as your superintendent, I need to bring it to your attention. A student participating in high school interscholastic athletics may participate only on the team consistent with the gender of the student's birth certificate unless otherwise permitted under North Carolina High School Athletic Association rules and regulations. So your School Board Association is asking you to strike this out because your federal government does not agree with your state government. Your state government says, hey, your birth certificate, that's where you play. Your federal government right now, under the current presidency, would say that's a Title IX violation. So this is.
But we also need to recognize that Title IX is being challenged, or the changes are being challenged as we speak.
Which is why I'm bringing
In
this
many
to your
states.
attention. is that these are recommendations from your school board association. Doesn't mean they're automatic, but they struck it out. This is why I'm bringing it to your attention, so you can talk with each other, talk with your constituents, make decisions.
And what is it you want us to decide? Because I don't think I need to talk to anybody, but I'll listen to you. What is it we need to decide?
When you're looking at the adoption of this policy, I did not want it to get past your eyes that they struck this out.
Oh, I already read it. It didn't get past me.
Can we put it-
Can we unstrike it right now?
Well, yeah, you still have first read, so you can unstrike whatever you want.
It
but
didn't even come close to getting by me.
I believe that there's at least one person in this room who has now seen it, all right? So with respect, I'm saying to you, I'm bringing it to your attention as your superintendent. I'd like to move on to homeschool.
And that didn't
I
get,
wanna-
and
I
that
would
didn't
like
get by
to
me
strike
either.
that.
Can we go ahead and unstrike it right now?
How about
With
it?
it for first read?
If all of you agree, yes.
Do y'all agree that we don't unstrike that? We unstrike it, I mean, we unstrike that, you, whatever's on your birth certificate is where you play, because that's what the good Lord gave you.
So moved.
Until we're.
Unstrike it.
All right, got a motion?
I knew I'd find something
that I
agree
All right, all in favor say aye.
Aye.
All opposed? Unstrike that one.
Until somebody legally makes us do it.
Right.
Bring it.
Well, if they carry us to court, we won't
Bring
have
it.
a
Right.
Then I'll
choice.
protest that.
That one, we'll work on the court.
We won't
case for
go
that
easy,
one.
will we,
Charles,
Charles?
will you make the motion if that time comes to go to the court with them?
There is no doubt about it.
All right, so I need to bring something else to your attention.
I know.
Since you're all having fun. Letter D, homeschool students. You are asked to choose one of these,
Look at option 3.
and I am... You got it, brother. I'm asking you in this read, or I'm recommending to you, option 3, students are not eligible for participation.
Thank you. Does that need to be voted on?
Not right now, it's
Yeah,
a
that's what I
first
was gonna
read.
say. I don't think so.
Well, on a roll, we might as well do that.
It's a first read.
We're talking about principals. I do not want a single principal in this room to have to deal with homeschool students that are not your students, period. I don't care if they're attendant, I see all the rules and regulations, they have to be this, they have to have passed so many classes and not have discipline referrals and their attendance policy. But when it comes right down to it, if they misbehave on that athletic team, what jurisdiction do you have? Because they're not your student. I don't see where that, if it's in there, it's buried and I didn't read it. What authority would Anthony Bailey have if there's a homeschool student on a north side team and the coach wants him disciplined? Anthony can't discipline that homeschool student, can he?
Well, you know he can't suspend him from school.
Well, the discipline,
You can certainly suspend him from play
Yeah.
as well as
It's
taking him
participation.
off the team,
And
right?
participation.
I mean, but that's all you, that's all.
I think that's all you can do.
That's
And
all
my
you can
thing
do.
is, I don't want them to have that headache.
Do we?
Are you leaving because I used you as an example?
No, I have to get my daughter.
I'm playing.
So
I know you're not.
is the board, we don't need a motion on this, but for Dr. Cheeseman's,
fine.
thing, can we do we have a board consensus, option 3?
Yeah.
Yes.
Have I got some head shakes?
Yes.
All right, keep moving. You got some direction.
I got
I'm
it.
just trying to keep you going.
You're good. Next one.
We just aggravating him, though.
No,
I appreciate you.
Everybody's got an opinion.
So noted. 4.5, policy 3100.
Dr. Cheeseman, can we go back? I wanted to ask you, we can do it after this, but I wanted to ask you something.
Go ahead.
And I didn't know where else to fit it in.
What, for this policy that we're on?
It's a series of policies. At our June 18th board meeting, under 8.3, Spring 2024 North Carolina School Board Association Board Policy Updates. Sir, you gave, you were talking about, I think it was 18 updates that
That were
had
handed
come
out that
down. And my question is, will we get to vote on those, and if so, when?
Well, at your next board meeting, it's typically a 30-day review.
Yeah.
Okay, just
Yep.
curious.
Yep, they were on the next board meeting.
And if you have a specific question about one, just give me a call.
Okay, thank you.
All right, so is that it for extracurricular activities?
Yes.
All right. 4.5, policy 3100, we have 3 attachments.
So you were board attorney received the most recent revisions around policy 3100 and has communicated that through the lens of the law does not see anything that should be struck down. He asked me to communicate that with his memo, he still talks about this repetition, that if there is something that's already stated in general statute, you don't necessarily need to repeat it in your policy. But from the law perspective, with the revisions, he doesn't see anything that he would red flag based on law.
Are we looking at the third
3100.
attachments? That's 3 attachments. Are we looking at the third one?
It is.
Which looks like the most
third
recent one?
Is the most recent.
It's the most recent
Yeah,
one.
and I would, if I could, I would like to go over, just to bring everybody up to date. In policy, in the first
the May 20.
attachment you see was the original policy code 3100. And then after, what happened was after Savas and everything that happened with that, of course, you know what happened here. I had a lot of outpouring, and you're talking about constituency, a lot of outpouring in my district about all that, and other districts too that had contacted us. And so we decided to meet and to see if we could figure out how to improve that. And I realize that we've got a committee that does that's made up of teachers, and Dr. Parker's over that. I have great respect for Dr. Parker. We met with him not too long ago, Gary and I, and we had a good meeting, and so I have no issues with that. And so what we did feel, though, in saying that, is that we felt that what we're asking for in the last attachment and the most recent was that we would like to have a board member. We felt that, well, let me go back. In the second attachment, we were talking about Community Standards Committee, and we felt like that was just too encumbersome, and it was oversight, and we just thought that was a little bit too over the top. So we decided, well, what about a board member being on that? And we just felt, as I said at another board meeting, we just felt that a board member being on there would keep us up to date more frequently. I know Dr. Parker has offered, I spoke to him tonight. He offered that if we had any suggestions or anything that we needed to know about that curriculum, that we're always, that we can always invite him to come and speak on that. But we just felt that if a board member was on that committee, that he would be knowledgeable, he would come back periodically. He's a member here, and he could just give us an update on how that's going. There were some things in Savas that we didn't find out about until after the fact. And we felt like having a board member on there would help with that. A board member would not have any more authority than anybody else other than maybe someone who could be able to think outside the box, not that anybody else wouldn't, but that he or she would have their own opinion.
Can I ask a question right
Sure.
here? Who is we? You keep referring to we met, we did this, we did. Who is we?
We just
I
had-
won't in any of that.
Sure, we just had a small committee that got together, we met, and Gary Charles was part of that, myself.
Anybody else?
Yeah, Ray Leary and.
Oh,
yeah,
okay.
Ray, and
Yeah.
attorney Steve Rader was on that committee.
Oh, okay.
Okay,
Just curious who we was.
yeah, well, I don't think we're hiding anything with
Oh,
that.
no, I didn't say you were hiding anything.
We were just trying to improve the process, and we're asking for a board member. Charles has agreed that he would like to be on that, and he is a teacher, a former teacher. And so,
Well, was a teacher.
as other teachers are on there as well, so
Okay.
that's the reason we came up with that.
You mentioned the lawyer said that there was no need to do repetitions on things. So why are we putting in this policy that they have to teach cursive writing, multiplication, memorization? I've checked with principals and they say we already do that. Now, is there any principal out there that says they don't do that in your school already? So why are you putting it in this policy? Do y'all teach the founding fathers' principles, the Declaration of Independence? I know this because I helped my 11-year-old granddaughter when she was a little younger memorize that. So I know it's being taught in south of the river schools. Now, Ms. Walker, you're more familiar probably with north of the river schools. Do you think it's not being taught over here?
It's being taught Bath, I know that.
If it's,
I see
Okay.
I see a northern North River principal shaking her head,
if it's
yes.
not being taught, then that teacher is not doing their job.
Right. But I was just, I mean, I don't care that you leave it in here, but you're just putting things in here that's already being done. But that's okay.
Well, and you're also not acknowledging any other subject, core subject area.
Right.
Correct.
Okay.
I think our concern on that was
Yeah.
if something like that were in there, it would be taught.
Okay.
That's what that is saying.
Okay. Well, I mean, I do have some more I want to say, but I'm not going to just yet. I think I'll just back up and let other board members speak their piece before I speak my piece.
Well, I would also just like to add, and then I'll shut up, is that we can take this back and look at it again. I hadn't seen, I mean, I heard what you said from the attorney, Dr. Cheeseman. I wanted to see that and then take it back and look at it, but we can vote on it tonight if you want to. That's fine with us.
It's fine.
I don't want to vote on it because I want to take it to some teachers and get their opinion. Because it doesn't matter who the we is, doesn't matter about the 9 of us other than we have to pass a policy up or down. What matters to me every day are the teachers in the classroom. And I want them to be comfortable with what we're trying to push through. And I want to hear their feedback. So my question would be, did your committee solicit feedback from any of our teachers?
From my information, we did.
And who were those teachers?
I don't know
Were
who
they
that-
high school
I
teachers,
can't tell
middle
you
school
that at this
teachers,
point.
retired teachers, Beaufort County school teachers? Because that's what's important to me. We force enough stuff, and I know I'm on a tirade tonight, and I'm just gonna have to deal with it. But we force enough policy that comes from the state, that comes from us onto our principals and our teachers. So I want us to tread lightly with how much more we're gonna force on them, like Terry said, in something that's repetitious. Because after a point, you know, if you tell a child 5 times not to touch the flame, by the 6th time, the child's starting to go, okay, I'm not touching the flame. I don't want teachers to feel like I am teaching that. But now I'm starting to get insulted that you have to keep telling me to teach it. So I want us to be careful. I do not want to vote on this until I can talk to some of the teachers.
It's
within our
first read.
Carolyn,
Yes, first read.
in my address tonight about this, we're not trying to force anything on anybody. We're sitting here with a social studies curriculum that there's nothing happening there. And so we would like to get the
Well,
ball
hold on.
started. We would like to get the ball started by offering to have a board member on there, and then let's get something going. And I don't see.
Are you saying they're not teaching?
No, I don't
social
think that's what he's
studies?
saying. I think
No,
he said
Hold on, Terry's got
no,
it.
no,
Terry
what-
asked
we were
for it.
trying to
They're
get a
teaching
curriculum, but we
social
didn't do it.
studies from the North Carolina standards. What we're saying is they're going from point A to B, and they don't have the car to get there that you want them to have. They're doing it with their own car that they're coming up with. I understand the importance of having it, but by you also saying we don't have a curriculum, you're backing up the fact that the system we already have in developing and finding a curriculum works because this board turned down what they brought to us. So the system we have already works. That proves it right there. Now,
Except for one thing.
Okay.
If may.
Sure.
I think y'all, we came on at the end of that process.
okay.
It's my understanding that was a 3-year process.
No, it wasn't a 3-year process. I don't know
How
who
long
said
was
that.
it, Dr. Cheatham?
Yeah, it wasn't a
Designed-
3-year.
How long was that committee working?
It's designed as an 18-month process, so
Yeah.
essentially,
So,
but the adoption process is not that long. So you normally look from January to December. And then, once the board makes a decision about whatever the recommendation is, If the board says yes, and go with it, the funding's there, then you start ordering the materials in the spring. And we believe that our professionals still need to have that training associated to that curriculum. So then through the spring, through the summer, they would be trained. And then when school opens in August, that's why it's 18 months. But the actual adoption is usually just about a year. And then the training pieces come behind it.
But the committee that presented to us, we never took the vote up because we saw the community reaction. So are we just gonna stop now and not go further?
Well, if you're asking me as superintendent, I would prioritize science since it's a tested area in the state of North Carolina and the standards have just been released prior to social studies as it's not a tested area in the state of North Carolina.
Right.
I see the logic, but.
Thank you.
But the heart, because I'm a social studies teacher.
And I'm a science guy, so I'm gonna push it, brother.
Y'all gonna have an arm wrestling
I'll
contest?
see you outside. I'll bring my chemistry. But in all seriousness, no, in all seriousness, if the state of North Carolina is going to hold 5th grade, 8th grade, and high school accountable on science, then no matter what the board decides, I would recommend that you go with science next. Thank you.
All right, that's the end of the first read.
No, I got one more thing to
All right,
say here. I don't really have any trouble with most of what's in here. The board giving direction on what kind of curriculum we want them to look at, the board looking over the curriculum committee, making sure that's set up the way we want. But just want to speak to Ms. Walker's concern, and I'm definitely going to take the 30 days, to look over it. But I'm going to tell you what you're going to find, because I've already talked to a number of teachers, and not one single staff member I have spoke to has said they will serve on a curriculum committee with a school board member. Not one single one, because it takes away, they feel, the freedom that they can express. And if we, as a school board, are going to approve who the committee, consists of, and also give them direction on what we want them to look at, then it comes back to us to either approve or disapprove at the end. I'm not trying to make us sound more important than we are, but we hired a director to select a curriculum and bring back to us. It's not our everyday job to serve on the committees to help them do that work. I trust him to do that work. Stay in your lane. So we're going to have 30 days, but I'll just go ahead and tell you right now, as long as there's a sentence in here that says include a board member, I will not vote for this. Take that line out, I'll vote for it. You're not supposed to be serving on committees,
Well,
not those kind of committees.
That's a nice aside there, because I believe we should bring back our standing committees a little bit on this board. But I think all we're trying to, tell me if I'm wrong, Don, I think all we're trying to solve is to not end up in a position where we were last time, when the committee that did the work met with the community, and the community pretty much said no. I'd like to head that off next time we'd go through that process.
We were
No
given.
matter, and I don't have to be on the committee.
No, I mean, I understand. Do you want to take out then, Don, the sentence that says, and I'm reading here, teachers should receive appropriate training so that they may participate in this curriculum development search? Are your board members going to participate in some kind of a training so you're qualified to go do this on the committee?
Isn't the training their degree in that?
Yes, yes.
I don't have an issue with that.
I'm just saying, we're getting out of our lane here. We
Hey,
hire
Chuck.
people to do this work, but that's fine. Remember, at the end of the day, what I always tell this board, I'm one member out of 9. I'm gonna be a no. I might lose 8-1. I don't care. My feelings don't get hurt. I'm pretty thick-skinned.
All right, we're good
Hey,
on
I've
the
got-
policy 3100. Take it back, work on it for 30 days.
I've got something else I want to add. Dr. Parker, we were only given 3 days to understand Sabbath and what that was. And you, sir, had a lot longer time to let us know and keep us updated on that, so we would be prepared for that. And then 3 days, we found out a lot in 3 days, and the community found out, and all hell broke loose, so to speak.
I'm going to take responsibility for that, and all I'm going to say in this forum is that's already been addressed and that's been heard, and your point is documented and noted. Thank you.
Yep. Okay.
All right, moving on. 4.6, NC Lottery Repair Renovation Fund. You have an attachment, Dr. Cheeseman.
So I'm really excited to share with the Board of Education that I've recently learned that public schools are receiving North Carolina Lottery Repair and Renovation Fund monies in the amount of $500,000 per year. And what I've recently learned is Beaufort County Schools has a balance of approximately 1.1 million. And so my understanding is that this is a fund that should generate each year. If you don't use it, it will carry over. And so in short, we anticipate another 500,000, but your General Assembly is also looking at whether they might up it to $1 million per year. This is only to be used on capital funds, and I've attached the actual manual so you can read. And ultimately, if you go to page 3, which you don't have to do at this moment, but to read for the audience, as interpreted by the Department of Public Instruction, the public school building projects and expenditures are allowable for enlargement of classroom facilities, improvements to classroom facilities, repair of existing building components and systems of classroom facilities, renovations of existing classroom facilities, equipment purchases for classroom facilities, and project planning and design fees. So please notice, this is really dealing with the actual school building, meaning I would not be able to use these funds to make corrections, say at the district office. I would be able to do it here because you can hold class here. But to that, the Board of Education has approximately 1.1 million. Now this is actually project-based money, so you don't get to just spend it. You would actually have to complete a project form of which you would need your county commissioners to sign off because it's lottery funds. And the reason I present it to you today is later on in the agenda, I'm presenting to you the capital outlay recommendations, of which in the right-hand column, you'll occasionally see NC Lottery, which is a recommendation to potentially utilize some of this funding. So I learned about this just a couple months ago. I've been doing research on it, and now feel very safe to say, post July 1, that you have a $1.1 million balance that you can start using.
Anybody got any questions for Dr.
Have they
Cheeseman?
just recently released this to us?
No, so,
Because, I mean, I see a date of 2021.
yeah.
That would have been nice to know then.
Yeah, I appreciate that. So, in true story, is I attended the North Carolina ASA meeting where a lottery official came in and told about 35 superintendents in the room, hey, you may not know this from other communications, but we recognize that we need to get this out there more. So they started attending superintendent meetings to let us all know. And very few districts had already started projects, but now you've got it and considered it a savings over the last couple of years, and now you can start rolling with it.
Good deal.
Yep.
Any more
That same
questions?
gentleman, I do believe, was the same one that presented to the School Board Association Board of Directors.
Yes, I believe you're correct.
Yeah.
4.7, new school update.
All right, so this is going to take a little bit of time, so just be patient, but I'd like to pass out a handout to you. And if you don't mind. This way. Pass some in that direction. You've got 2 more, okay, I'll just pass. All right, so I'm passing this out to you now because I've received greater information at 2:30 today, or just after 2:30 today, from Mr. Height. And for audience members in the community to understand, when you win a $42 million grant in February, lots of excitement, and then it seems like it goes quiet for many, many months, which it does. The grant itself and the parameters around what the General Assembly did for you as a board in this community says that the grant purpose is not only used to construct a building, but also used to actually plan for the building. So the fact that you don't have a lot of information right now is okay, is the point. You're not supposed to have a lot of information right now. you did not submit a grant application that said this is exactly what everything's gonna look like. And the grant says that's okay, use the money to help plan. So what you have in front of you, after working with your architect, Mr. Jimmy Height of Height Associates in Greenville, is specifically 3 options, just to bring you up on some things. So I believe you should have letter C at the top. Like the top page is C, you're gonna back into B, and then the last page is A. So letter C, this is what the current structure looks like. If you hold it horizontally, you're looking at the building structure. It's flush to Pennsylvania Avenue. Right-hand side, you see the retention pond, and you recognize that maintenance and operations would have to move.
Is that the retention pond in blue?
No, that's maintenance operations. They're underwater.
Yeah.
Right.
Right.
Maintenance and operations is
Oh,
in blue.
that's, because I don't have a key.
Yeah, I don't either.
I don't either.
So the
But
key
maintenance and
piece
operations.
is, so Carolyn, and with respect,
In that
you're
very
seeing an
small
overlap.
letter,
I
in
get
that
it.
very, very small letter.
Yeah, yeah.
Well-
You gotta remember, I'm old.
So to the point is,
can't
this is option C, where Mr. Height has moved the school slightly down the property, moving the retention pond to the right. And part of that rationale is it's sitting right at the drain entrance that runs under the road, goes right out to the river for stormwater, right?
Right.
So that's option C. If you notice, that means that technology, school nutrition, and maintenance all have to move. And so we're developing plans behind the scenes to move those. I'll get to it in a moment. If you flip the page to option B, and this just recently came to my learning, and if you look at option B, notice between B and C, the building is now just counterclockwise in option B. But notice the access road actually goes across property that most everybody in this community thought you owned. At least when we finally pulled some of the information, it's a deed from like 1964 or 1968. So in fact, if you notice, your architect is saying, hey, to build it exactly the way it is on this paper where operations would not have to move, then in fact, you may have to acquire 2.5 acres. So, hey, Matthew, could you go back to the city council and say, hey, would you like to donate 3 or 4 acres, or would you like us to buy 3 or 4 acres, whatever that looks like? Then you don't have to move operations, could be a cost analysis moment. All right, so flip to A.
I'm sorry, in option B, where's the retention pond?
Right in the
Right in
front,
front.
that triangle. And that very, very
the left
small
of
letter that you
operations.
gotta have a magnifying glass to see.
Sure, got it.
Right here, sir.
Right there,
Right here, sir.
In front of the school?
right there.
Yeah.
If you look really, really close.
So in
I got
front of that
readers on.
first circle.
Yes.
Does it look like a triangle?
Yes, sir.
Yeah.
Right.
Yeah, I got it.
Bottom right-hand side. To the left of the squares. All right. All right, now, if you go to A is obvious, I'm sorry it didn't print well. A is obviously an older sketch, but what I want to bring to your attention is, again, flush to Pennsylvania Avenue, right-hand side, operations stays. But notice above operations, when you talk about a deep with retaining walls, this is essentially your pond runoff. So what Mr. Height is going to explain tomorrow in the progress meeting update, sorry you couldn't be here tonight, family concern, is that in fact, you would have to put a considerable amount of money in to bring the retention pond up the property. And when I say up, I mean by elevation, you're coming up the property. So in short, he's going to start providing numbers back to the board around what would it cost in order to, build the seawall around the retention pond for letter A, where you don't have to move operations. Under letter B, with your blessing, I can talk with Jonathan Russell, city manager, to see, hey, would they be interested in donating 4 or less acres, and/or what would the cost be with your blessing? And letter C, I can bring back additional numbers of what it would look like to move operations. But to give you just a general idea, as Amber could tell you with technology, for Optimum to come in and move your fiber line right now is a $23,000 cost. about a 60-day turnaround, maybe 90, but it's a contract that you would have to commit to, likely at the next board meeting. Additionally, to move school nutrition, personnel-wise, we can relocate them to Building 4 on the district office site. However, it's the freezer. And you're looking at about a 18 by 30 freezer, maybe 540 square foot, but you're looking at about a considerable amount of money to repurchase and reconstruct. Maintenance, potentially could relocate right over my shoulder here to the annex, put in all their vehicles right behind the fence line, or they could come over to Building 4 and I can shift personnel and they could be behind the fence line there. Or you could actually construct a newer building for them, which I am receiving price estimates on now, so you would have knowledge. Put it on the right-hand side of transportation, so all of operations is in one place moving forward. But some of those costs can be exorbitant. If you're looking at a new building, you're looking at, 500 to 700,000, somewhere in that ballpark. But to that point, it's not 5 million of what I've heard tossed around. You're not looking at exorbitant amounts of money. Definitely less than $1 million to make some of those moves. But to the point, I wanted to show you, here's your planning documents. I know the chair had asked Mr. Height to give you 3 different options. Here are the 3 different options. They came in today at right around 2:30. And to that point, again, letter C, you're going to have to move operations. Letter B, you might have to acquire a little bit of land and not move operations. Letter A, you don't have to acquire any land, you don't have to move operations, but you may have to spend a considerable amount of money, which I don't have knowledge of, on the actual retention pond.
So the grant, and I think I got this right, plays for the whole planning phase.
Yes.
As we're planning this, school construction.
Yes.
And we're just stepping through the process, slowly to make sure that we're making the right decisions with the architect's help.
Yes, which
to
if
make this
you,
happen.
the answer to that is yes. If you look at the timeline that Mr. Height gave you, and I'm not sure if you see it on board docs right now, but the actual horizontal timeline, which was developed, I think, back in February.
It's not on there.
Okay, so the original timeline shows that for July, you're right where you should be on the timeline, where drawings are starting to be put together by Height Associates. Ultimately, an engineered drawing will be put together. So you're not behind, you're not ahead, you're right where you should be. And tomorrow, Mr. Height will be here, right in this room at 12 o'clock to answer questions regarding that.
Anybody getting, go ahead.
I did
Don,
hear.
Don first. Don, I saw Don first, I'll get you next. Sorry. Good, Don.
Thank you, TW. I was just gonna say, wouldn't Plan B be most feasible as far as just asking the question?
We
If
haven't got
somebody
any
would, if
numbers
somebody
from-
could
yeah.
donate us some land?
Absolutely, I just need the board's blessing to contact the city manager.
All right, go Terry, you're next.
So where's the proposal, if we have to move operations, or if we choose to move operations, where are we moving them? Let's start with IT network.
Pod 10, Eastern Elementary School.
Because it stays, that's one of the positives, it's not.
Well, it can stay. If you don't want it, you can knock it down.
Is that large enough space for that?
Yes,
It's new enough, though.
yes.
Okay, and then we got school nutrition?
But please note, technology move, you're looking at $23,000 cable line and about a
I'm
10,
aware.
and about a $10,000 to $12,000 bunker move.
Okay.
All right, for the crane. I'm sorry, the next one, I missed it.
Nutrition?
School nutrition, depending on what you want to do with your freezer, you can either drop your freezer right over my shoulder here, but the personnel would go into building 4. Or if you created a new building for maintenance, then you could actually attach the freezer onto the side of the maintenance building with an external generator. All numbers that we're trying to get right now. And that's about a $650,000, $700,000 projection, but you can start cutting things
And where are
off.
we gonna be with maintenance? Here or over at?
So you have some options as a board. You can move maintenance right over my shoulder, fence line in, all trucks, put them into the annex, do storage behind me in terms of the old gym, meaning that they wouldn't operate in the building behind us, they would operate behind the museum. That personnel would move over to building 4. So you can really do some things that are cost effective. Might not be the space individuals prefer to go to, but you can in fact move it.
And where I'm going with this is I like option B. I like the design, the layout, but I also like the retention pond in that corner. So I would want, like, what I'm saying is I would like a B and C mix. I
So
like
you'd
the
so you'd
layout
like a
of how-
D.
Huh?
So you want a D?
I want a D, and we are moving the folks.
Okay, I'll ask them to get that.
If you're really familiar at all with the property,
That corner's low.
option A is going to carry you.
Option A is gonna take quite a bit of grading.
Oh, yeah.
Because water doesn't run uphill.
Yeah, A is not the option. But keeping it where, putting that retention pond down where we have in C, that's the perfect location
Yes.
because that's the low slope there on that piece of property. But the way it's laid out kind of at an angle, not straight on, looks better on paper.
So just to educate the board on that then, when you talk about movement and money, because I'm sure the community is going to ask you where you're going to get the money to move them. So the Board of Education cannot use the 1.1 lottery money, all right? So we have approximately $200,000 in contingency funds, and I also have just under $300,000 of unbudgeted sales tax money. So in short, I'm sitting at just around 500,000 that would qualify to help us move things or construct things if you needed it. And then you could look also at your Fund 8 money or fund balance money. But there's a way that you could construct things, access things, without having to ask anyone for other money. Now, the demolition of said structures, in order for that pond to go in, may actually fall under the grant.
I would assume it
So the
would.
demolition cost would be for that. Now, in terms of moving operations, as a good example, if you constructed a new building on the property behind Building 4 for maintenance, you could move their HVAC system over to that building. So there can be cost savings in shifting things.
Could I just reiterate one thing?
Please.
Just so everyone would know and remember, just because you don't see dirt being moved does not mean things aren't happening. We're on schedule, and don't listen to all the noise that's being talked about here and there and wherever, that nobody's doing anything, nobody knows what they're doing. This is the planning stage. We purposely are moving at this pace so that we do it right the first time. Doesn't need to be redone. It needs to be done right the first time. We're on schedule. The first of next year, people will start seeing dirt moved, and I guess then they'll say, wow, they really are building a school. But what's going on right now is probably the most important step of building a school.
And so I just want to make sure that,
Yes.
that I have the board's blessing to go ahead and contact the city manager, just.
Please,
to
that,
Please.
talk
I
about that.
like that the
That's-
best because it
yeah,
lets
that's
our
when
people
Donald
stay
said.
put.
So I'll make a motion to that.
I do too.
And I agree with Donald on
Got a
that.
I
motion
would
and a
be
second. All in
shocked
favor,
if
say
the
aye.
mon, if
Yes.
the money you're talking about, Matthew, that you're sitting on, I would be shocked that you're sitting on, that we're
All
sitting on.
opposed?
Aye.
Yeah, I already got the aye. I called
Yeah.
you.
We get a
You
second. It would get a
All right.
second.
But my point is, I don't think it would take that to acquire 2.5 acres.
No, I
We're
agree
gonna,
with you.
we're gonna go down to 5.1,
Now, you did
contract.
say that the original timeline that was established is probably back in the February. Okay.
Yeah, the original timeline, and I'll email it back out to everyone, but on the original grid sheet that were the horizontal bar graph,
Yeah.
you were sitting right in July for the information I just gave you. You're not behind, you're not ahead, you're doing exactly what was promised by Height, despite what you read or hear, and it's not costing you $5 million to do anything, okay?
5.1, contract peer approval. We got an attachment, Rick
Yes.
Anderson LLC.
Yeah,
Dr.
so
Cheeseman.
super excited to bring this to your attention. As you know, Mr. Anderson, by chance, is the former principal of Southside High School, longtime educator in Beaufort County Schools. In the past, we have brought some of these contracts to the board, or under 90,000, I normally sign them for the board. But to build a pipeline for our principals and APs and our school improvement teams, grade level teams, to have, long-term support, I'm asking the board to consider not a 1 year, but a 3 year. And because it's 3 years, it goes over the $90,000 threshold. And so with some of the feedback that I first received, on the second page of 4, under line 6, terms of payment client, I have added the phrase, at a minimum of 100 hours per month. Notice I didn't do it per week. That way, sometimes Mr. Anderson's on site for 8 hours, sometimes he might be on site for 4 hours. I can assure you, he's in a school improvement team meeting tomorrow, even though it's the summer and he's not on contract. He was in one 2 days ago. But also remember, Mr. Anderson is committed to the district as he served as the interim principal for Washington High School, which probably exceeded 300 hours over those 2 months. But in short, what this is really about, and just look at the scope of work, I'm asking this independent contractor to provide professional development and mentoring services to assist principals, including administrative interns and principals during the school year 25 to school year 27, provide professional support to 13 school improvement teams, and maintain appropriate program records and appropriate files, meaning that he would provide information back to me, including a monthly timesheet. And with that, I'm asking for your approval.
And remember, he has already been working with us. This isn't something new.
No,
Okay.
no, it's
So
not new.
please let me be the one. I make a motion to approve this.
Second.
All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
All opposed?
Can I ask a question? Would it be, and I guess I need to ask Rick, if you occasionally, well, not even occasionally, but if you would, as often as you feel necessary, report back to us where we need to help and support principals, assistant principals, is there something that we're not doing? If you would give us, I hate to call it a report, because I'm not asking you to come in here and say, this principal's not doing this and this principal's, I'm not saying that. Do you get where I'm coming from? If you said, I think there needs to be some more instructional support, or, does that make sense? Just to kind of give us some updates.
I agree with
So
that.
if
That would be very helpful to me and several specific schools I'm thinking of.
So if he sees something that we're remiss as a board in not providing, whether it's professional development or whatever, it'd be nice. Do you have a problem with that?
All right. That'll work. 5.2, capital outlay list. You have an attachment. Hope everybody had a chance to look over it. It's a lot of information.
Yes, and so these are solely recommendations. You can table this tonight if you prefer. However, let me explain it top down. In the right-hand column with the yellow highlight is what I'm recommending. If by chance you see the word contingency, if you do not use your contingency funds to move your operations teams, then I'm suggesting that you use your contingency funds to complete whatever it says right here. Also, if you see NC Lottery R&R, that's for repair and renovation, that I deem that to be part of your classroom facility, that the lottery fund could be used. And you'll see specifically there are a fair amount of speaker system, bell system, and/or sound system requests, which would be classroom facilities, school facilities, so that's why I'm saying lottery funds. But also, if you go to the way bottom, and just so you know the numbers, the back page, you have a budget from your county commissioners of 2.2 million and some change. You'll notice at the bottom there, the Northside High School stage replacement for 13,500. I laid that in at the very end because it came after graduation, after much of this information was put together. And what I learned as superintendent is Northside High School actually doesn't have a stage. So this stage has been moved throughout the county from Bath back and forth. So I'm recommending that we acquire a stage. And so that's why it's separate, like I did with the Washington High School track last year, just so you know, nothing was dumped in elsewhere. That's the only late addition that I put on. So you'll notice that your budget and your project totals are even, and that sounds weird. But if it doesn't work out, I usually put some of that money back into safety and security or technology. But if you have questions, I believe Mr. Stokes is here. If not, I'll try to answer any of the questions. And it's a $9 million request list and a $2.2 million budget.
Tom?
Dr. Cheeseman, has the principal seen these figures yet?
The principals are the individuals who actually ask for these items, of which then you do a capital walkthrough tour.
Right.
And you may remember that we were together. So they have actually prioritized them.
Okay.
But I think they may be seeing what the recommendations are right now, as you are.
Okay, thank you.
Any more questions?
I have no problem with, I looked over it this afternoon, so, do you want a motion, or does everybody want to look at it later?
I did put it for action, but if you'd like to table it, you're welcome to.
I would just ask that, again, that as far as rekeying, and getting ready for the school year, any type of safety and security, if we can prioritize that and move that forward.
Yeah, so under your safety and security budget, if you look at page 7, safety and security has a budget of $251,849. I should have highlighted those, that yellow, but in short, I would take the money out of that for safety and security to rekey the building. But the maintenance director and I are working on a way to rekey the outside of the building,
The exterior doors primarily.
the outside of the building.
Yes.
I make a motion.
I second.
I've got a motion and a second. All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
All opposed?
And just to update you, since you have approved it, and thank you so much, please remember that you changed the policy earlier in the year. So anything under $25,000, the maintenance director has the authority to move forward. And
Go
so
to
you
work.
you should start to see movement by mid-August on some of these things.
But he's also gonna update us and let us know. He's not gonna, I mean, he'll be
He's
bringing
going
things-
wild.
yeah.
No, he's going to update you, probably on a quarterly basis, just so you know where projects are.
Good.
I move we go into closed session pursuant to General Statutes 143-318A111A1 to prevent disclosure of confidential personnel files under GS 115C 321.
Second.
All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
All opposed?